I see this shift has very much happened, that historically, in terms of the subject of identity, how we determine that sense of who I am in the world, historically, we would derive that. People would derive it from their family, right? And some cultures are still that way. It's very much about family connectedness. How you behave in the world is an issue of honoring your family and your ancestors. So that's still very much in play in some parts in the world, but not in the West, or not broadly speaking anyway. It's shifted really from deriving my identity from things outside of myself. They give me my sense of self, to really I create my identity. That I learn to I guess, paint a picture of who I truly am through various means. Most of those have to do with really introspection from a subjective sense of looking inside, which we'll get to in the fourth session, I think, when we start talking about spirituality in particular. But that's generally a shift that I've seen taking place. And along with that, there was a survey done by the Barna Group, which is a Christian polling group, in 2016. And they found that 91% of adults and 76% of practicing Christians agreed with this statement. And this is along the whole subject of identity formation. They agreed with this statement, that the best way to find yourself is by looking within yourself. I find that very interesting, especially, and again, Barna's research methods, it's an American group, so when they say Christian, often it's a cultural Christianity they're speaking of, but still that's reflective of a Christian mindset in Western culture, is that, you know what, to truly understand yourself, you need to look within yourself. I think generally speaking, that has produced a lot of things that are kind of curious in recent days. I don't know if any of you read this story. This was in 2016. There was a 20-year-old woman in Oslo who self-identified as a cat. She actually went to some psychiatrists, and they saw that there was something different about her. And she said to the person interviewing her, she said, yeah, I was born in the wrong species. I realized that I am more of a cat than a human. And you know, they had some pictures of her, and you kind of chuckle at that, but there were a number of European newspapers that covered this story in detail. Pictures of her on her all fours, you know, and licking herself, and she'd talk about how she would bark or hiss at dogs when they were nearby. Why that would become a human interest piece, I'm not sure, than something that ought to concern us and say, I think this is a young lady who needs some help, instead of kind of affirming it as some kind of expression of individuality. This is more recent. You probably heard of this fellow, a Dutchman in Holland, who was suing to have his birth certificate changed, his age changed from 69 to 49. Because he was, the doctors even said he was a particularly fit specimen. He still had dark hair, which I'd love. I'd probably look 20 years younger if I had black hair too. He said, I feel like a 49-year-old. So why should that not be reflected in my official identification? I don't think of myself as a 69-year-old. I don't feel that way. So it's this whole notion of anchoring our sense of identity on some kind of inner experience or inner personal sense. That's fairly new, but again, I think the ideas that have brought us there have been coming for some time now. And I think about that in relationship to Scripture and what Scripture tells us is true about ourselves. Think about this. This is Jeremiah 17:9. That the heart is deceptive above all things. Who can understand it? You know, think of the Apostle Paul, who said, you know what, I don't judge anyone, I don't even judge my own motives, because the heart's deceptive. If I'm looking for some kind of true reflection of reality, looking inside is the last place I should look. And yet that's the exact opposite of what our culture tells us. And in Romans 7, Paul said this, the problem is I know that good itself doesn't dwell in me. He says, that is, in my sinful nature. If I'm looking for what is ultimately good, what I can anchor my sense of self-worth and self-understanding to, it's not on the inside. And I think realizing that, I don't think that's just important for us in terms of how we communicate with our culture around us. I think this has huge implications for us in terms of our own spiritual health. Because if I spend so much time introspectively trying to evaluate why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, I've been there, And it's very difficult to get any firm footing because my heart is deceptive.